Welcome to Voice with Vielka, the podcast dedicated to the ongoing quest for finding how to best teach kids to sing with confidence. I'm your host, Vielka, and I'll share my experiences as a performer, educator, founder, and mother for the last 20 years here in the heart of New York City. Thank you for joining me as I share with you the amazing people, practices, and talking points to help us grow together as singers, educators, entrepreneurs, and human beings. Hi, and welcome to Voice with Vielka. Today, I am so excited to speak with you about a topic I've been thinking a lot about for the last several years, which is videos, and the role that videos can play in our teaching and learning space. So let me ask you, how are you using videos in your own teaching and learning? Have you experimented different ways? Have you been checking out YouTube and learning different things on your own just from videos? Have you watched any reaction videos that you really love and found informative? There are so many videos everywhere now. In fact, we've even gone from a culture of posts where it's pictures to reels, because there's something even more gripping and mesmerizing about videos and being able to see motion in action with words and the visual, right? So I've been thinking a lot about this. I want to share with you the story of my sister-in-law, Sarah, and the journey that she had that started a few years ago when she was searching to improve her voice and start singing lessons. And we had limited time and availability that matched up. So Sarah was a beginning singer. And although she's an adult, she really hadn't taken voice lessons before, but she had a passion for singing that she wanted to improve upon. And so she asked me for voice lessons. So of course, I met with her online since we are far, the other ends of the country from each other. And we had a wonderful online lesson. And I introduced my beginning singing tools to her. But at that point, it was the height of the pandemic. There was a lot going on. And in terms of finding a consistent time to meet, it became a little tricky. And so I actually asked her, hey, would you be willing to be a beta tester? I have a couple of ideas here. First is that I had created a series of videos that were video lessons. So that is teaching the singing tools that are part of my method in a sequential order via video. So that, similar to any YouTube video you would go find on how to do something, that you're learning these steps that are then going to give you the tools that you can own yourself as a singer and start implementing in your singing right away. So to my delight, she was up for it. And so she did these singing lessons via video. And we also met with her again online once, where we did sort of a masterclass setting. We had different teachers in the room, and she was there, and I was working with her in real time. And again, that was maybe like the second lesson, I want to say. Like, there really hadn't been much one-on-one real time happening between us. But the other part of this experimentation was that, part of what I wanted when I was creating an online course for singers, same with my online course for teachers, is that I didn't want to just put it out there and not see the results. Because part of what I find is the most effective formula for learning is that you have effective guidance and personalized feedback. And so it was really that latter part of the personalized feedback that I wanted to make sure was going to happen, that I wasn't just sort of putting these courses out there, onto the internet or out into the world, and then not seeing how they were being received and just getting any sort of feedback myself as a teacher, and then for the learner to see that they're really taking it in the way that I had intended, and just seeing where they needed adjustments, had questions, wanted help. So, I've been teaching for too long, and in that time, I have experienced how even what I would consider to be very clear step-by-step instructions will actually be interpreted in as many ways as there are people reading those instructions, right? That everyone's a little bit different. And although I am constantly doing my best to refine it and really help make those instructions work for most people, there's always going to be an outlier. There's always going to be a different interpretation. And that's just part of the teaching and learning, right? And the fact that we are all different, which is part of what makes it really great too, is that it becomes this really rich and rewarding challenge and reward to figure out what's the thing, the aha moment that really clicks for somebody. So back to Sarah and the videos. I gave her these videos. She watched them, but because I didn't want it to just be her taking that in, I wanted to have that personalized feedback moment. I was looking for a video back and forth. So one of the first apps that came on the scene for that is called Marco Polo. So I don't know if you are familiar with it. I really started using it the most when it was during the beginning of the pandemic. I was using it with friends. You can have more than one person in a group. And basically, it's like having a text group where you're, instead of texting back and forth, you're sending quick videos back and forth. And what's lovely about Marco Polo is that it sets it up so that at the bottom, you're just seeing a row of these individual videos. So it's like a feed that's a horizontal feed at the bottom. So it's very easy to click and hear the video. And you can also give little reaction responses like that with some hearts and smileys, that kind of thing. So it's nice in that it keeps this really clear progression and that you're able to just give these quick videos back and forth. And so that's what we started with. We started with Marco Polo, and Sarah would send me a video just when she had the time. She would send a video of her singing the song. I would listen, and then I would send a video back with my comments, what I felt she was doing really well, what was working for her, and some areas for her to look for making some adjustments and giving her some tools and specific guidance there so that she knew how to make those adjustments. And I could model it for her. I was telling it for her and then send it back. So we did that a few times. I think what surprised me the most was not that it worked, but how well it worked. And of course, it's going to be different for each person. This is a case study of one, but I could not believe. And I had to ask Sarah, like, hey, wait a second. I've only seen you how many times and how many live lessons, did we ever do? And you've accomplished this much in this short amount of time just via the videos back and forth. So it was super encouraging. It was extremely rewarding. And it really helped solve some of the problems that can often come up for either busy adults who are working and juggling parenting in addition to work, or having that challenging student who is in a bunch of shows and has lots of after school activities, and it's just one more thing. A lot of times schedules are just different via, either because of the time zones or because of just all the busyness that happens, right? And so it solved this problem around when, right? It solved the problem of when can I do it? So it just kind of gave a new level of freedom of being able to just send in a video and then get the video back. The other piece of this was that I had been really racking my brain for another way of offering really high quality lessons to students with the personalized feedback that was much more budget friendly. Because let's face it, I'm here in New York City. Everything is expensive everywhere, and especially in New York City, it's just extremely expensive. And we're offering, very high quality instruction and teachers, and so it's at a premium for live lessons. And so I wanted to see how could we offer more lessons in more times, because the other part of it, right, is that as teachers, there are those hot times, right? So we mostly focus on young students, young singers. So that means after school times and weekends. And those after school hours from 3 to 6, let's say, are the hot times, really 4 to 6. I mean, those are the hottest times, right? And even then, it's like, okay, 4 to 6, Tuesday through Thursday. That's probably the hottest lesson times, right? Because it gives them a little bit of a break right after school. You want to catch them before dinner time. Um, they have other activities that they're scheduling, throughout the week. Maybe on Fridays, they just sort of need a rest day. Monday, it's just kind of coming into the week and they just need time for homework. So there are so many factors that we are weighing in both as parents and as teachers and as students. So to be able to offer an additional window of time that can just happen for them as an exchange, especially for the teacher end of it, right? So if I'm scheduling my teachers or myself as a teacher, knowing that those afternoon hours are so precious and limited, that this then gives us the opportunity to be giving feedback that's just as helpful and effective as it would be in person, only during sort of our off hours, and which we have much more of. There was the idea of keeping it shorter interval of time in terms of a teacher being able to offer feedback, which would then be able to lower the price point and make it more budget friendly for our families. We have now been using this way of video lessons and really video feedback in 2 ways that have been amazing, and I highly, highly recommend. I'm really looking forward to the day where this is standard practice in what we do here as voice teachers. And I've seen many voice teachers already utilizing it, so I'm happy to say I'm not alone. There are a growing number of people doing it, and I just want to make you aware. So the 2 ways that I use it the most are the following. And let me just preface this by saying I have called it and given it the label private video coaching or asynchronous private video coaching. So that's how I think of it and what we refer to it here at Young Singers Academy. And what we have done is for the Academy and for students who are taking regular lessons, like live, either in person or online voice lessons, of course, there's inevitably going to be the times that they have to miss, whether they have a conflict, whether they're sick, there's going to be a missed lesson. And what's really lovely is that there's always that option in place for students and their families to send an asynchronous private video to us, and then we will send one back. So that is there. We do not use Marco Polo for that because I wanted to have something that was really meant and designed for children, that had sort of more monitoring and privacy around it and could be more connected to our studio. So what I use, I'm going to come back to that in just a second, my solution for that. The second way that I use it is to simply offer that piece of the back and forth asynchronous private video coaching as its own service. So what I mean is, whereas a voice lesson online is a service, an in-person voice lesson is its own service, that private video coaching is now offered by Young Singers Academy as its own unique service. And my hope with this is that between the sort of reaction type of videos where we're giving very clear and specific feedback, that we're going to have a couple of things happen. That we're going to have, first off, the sense that this student is getting very personalized instruction from a teacher who is tied to them, right? That you have your own teacher. There's a real person on the other side of the video who is going to be consistently coaching you and giving you that feedback. And we did put into place a day and a time because, of course, teachers still have those limited hours when they can work. So it tends to be in an off-hour time, and that time is on their schedule, reserved on their schedule for them to do a 15-minute private video coaching. So what do those 15 minutes look like? They look like this. They look like up to a 5-minute video that they are watching from the student. And in that, method-related exercises that I can see how exactly they are using our singing tools and using those exercises so we can see that in isolation first. And then we ask for a piece of the song that they're working on and having them really slate, practice slating. So saying their name, what the title of the song is, what they're working on, and to really think about what the concentration is. What's the area of focus as they go into that? And then they present a piece of their video of them singing part of the song. And then what's really important to me as a teacher is to understand their thought process. So then to say, okay, here's what I'm thinking. Here's what I noticed about it. So I noticed X, Y, and Z. I'm looking for answers like, I noticed that my throat felt really tight for the high note. Or I noticed that I didn't really know this one spot so well. Or I noticed that I had a hard time staying in a mix and not flipping to head voice for this particular note on this one phrase. So to then isolate that phrase and then think to themselves, what tool can I apply to revise that and try again? And so then they try again after they've reflected. And then they're also just asking us like, hey, here's where I really am wanting some feedback. I'm wanting feedback on the expression or how to use my body or technically how to make this note easier, something like that, right? So I'm very interested not only just in their singing and what that's like, but also in their thought process and what kind of ownership they are taking of their own learning, what skills they have in terms of the tools and techniques that we're teaching so that they can problem solve for themselves. And that gives us a very clear picture of where they're at. And then within that 5-minute video, the teacher is looking at that, and then we are giving back information. Hey, here are the glows, right? We always want to start with the glows, what they're doing well. Really focus on what we notice they have done, what's really working well for them, and to really celebrate that. As a side note, and we also ask them to celebrate at the end of their video something that they did, right? It's a practice that really helps success, building on success, that idea that you actually are going to have a more joyful time learning and have more wins when you celebrate the wins and just take a moment to be like, oh yeah, I did that. And that was really great. And I can now chart my own progress. I know that I am, making progress and feeling stronger about my voice or happy in some way. And that is a huge part of this singer's mindset that we talk about and part of the process of learning and growing in a really positive way that's going to really nurture confident voices, which is our mission here. So the teacher will then be reflecting back in a very similar way of what the glows are and then what the grows are. What are the areas where we can offer some tools, some techniques, some suggestions that are very clear and specific. And we're really looking for a couple of things here. We're looking to use one tool at a time. I know this is a hard one I struggle with because I always want to give them a download of like a gazillion things, and this will help, and this will help, and then this. And it's really been a continuous reflection and practice for myself to sort of just take a moment, take a beat, and think, okay, what are the top 1 to 3 things that are going to really move the needle for the student next? And depending on age and level of seriousness with their studies, it will be either just one tool or up to 3 tools that we want to give back, or 3 comments, of grows that we want to give back so that they can really take it in and really focus on that one tool at a time. Because the reality is that we can't stack a bunch of new ideas and new strategies in our mind at the same time. We really only have space to do one focused thing well at a time. That does still mean that I can focus on 3 or many things, but that I'm going to be doing them one at a time. So I'm going to focus on point number 1, do that, then point number 2, just do that, point number 3, and focus on that. as a student. Okay. So as a teacher, I want to set them up for success by not creating overwhelm, by celebrating what those glows are, and by giving them limited grows so that it's clear to them what that next step is to help them on their way. And that video goes back to them. It's going to be no more than 10 minutes. I really expect it to be probably closer to 5 minute video back from the teacher, but it takes time, right? So if I were to watch a 3 to 5 minute video, I'll probably watch it a couple of times. I'll probably watch it the first time. I might watch it again the second time at a higher speed. That's just how I personally like to watch videos. If I already have a clear sense or just, get to the spots that are specific and then create a video back. I think it's really nice to be able to see visually the teacher in addition to the voice and be able to point back. I think it's even, if you want to get more sophisticated, you could have a video within the video, really play back that moment so it's very clear for them what it is that they need. And then at the end to send home the lesson notes. So we like to email the notes so that the parent's aware and also send notes directly to the student. And how do we do that, you ask? With the students, if I'm not using Marco Polo, and of course there are many solutions here that you could do, right? You could be using Google Drive and taking videos and sending them that way. I just don't like that solution in terms of the amount of storage and uploads. It just kind of feels like it's a lot. Another solution that I think is really great would be to use YouTube unlisted, creating a playlist. I think that would work well. Again, I feel like the upload time might be just sort of some extra factors in there, which I don't really love. And because I have a multi-teacher studio, I want to have a sense of cohesiveness within the studio and sort of that everything's under one roof that can be monitored. So for that reason, I use Practice Space. And I love, love, love my Practice Space app. Thank you, Robert, who created this. I'll have to do a separate just talk about that or just a video so you can really see it for YouTube. But I love Practice Space. And Practice Space I found after a probably 2-year search looking for the practice app that I felt would be really easy to use, that would be attractive to my young singers, and that could handle a level of efficiency in terms of having a library that you can pull resources from and just the functionality, right? So what I loved the most and why Practice Space was number one for me was that when you look at it, basically it's tracking your practice. So when you track, you press the go button, there's this blue bird that comes on who's really like the avatar, the opening avatar. It will track the day, the time of each practice, and it gives you a clear checklist. So again, as someone who's a systems person, I really love the idea that there's clear modules essentially that you're creating where the child or the student can just click, see what the notes are for that assignment, see what the related videos or attachments are there. So it's all housed and organized in a neat way. And that when they go to practice, they get that check mark like, yes, I did my opening siren series, yes, I worked on this song. Yes, I worked on this concept. And then as they do that, here's what I love. They get gems and points for their practice time. The app will acknowledge streaks. So if you start practicing for days in a row, it's saying, hey, you won the 2 days in a row badge. And it's giving you little badges, points. There's a leaderboard so that they can see how they are against other students. Not that I want it to be a fierce competition, but a friendly competition, right? I think that there is a lot to be said for being held accountable to show up and seeing others who are there, who are really going to bring out the best in each other is what we're hoping for, right? Just by saying, hey, I'm not alone in this, right? So a lot of workout classes have this, like a leaderboard up there, a lot of places because it works, right? It's motivating for a lot of students, not everyone, of course, but for a lot. So that's an aspect that I really loved about it. And then I love that you can access it either through the app on a device, and you can also now access it online just through a browser. It requires the parent to sign up for the child, which means that the parent's involved, that they're seeing things, that if you have a multi-teacher studio, that's also an option. You can also just do a single teacher, but that you can really oversee everything, and that it's really designed in a way where there's no noise and it feels more private and really created exactly for us, which is wonderful. That's how we've been doing it. They did an update where there's now a chat feature, and you can send videos back and forth via that chat feature. You could also do it through assignments, but we've been doing it through the chat feature, and I just love it. I love that there's an organized way and that it's all in there so that we can clearly see that weekly practice that we're talking about. I hope it also gives you some ideas about how to use videos in your studio, that it lets you know that I think it's a totally authentic practice to have this private video coaching, and that what are we really doing? I think people first would say, if they were a naysayer, they'd be like, but that's so different than being in person for a lesson. And yes, it is different. However, if somebody was videoing me in person with the in a lesson in real time, and if I were to take that video of the lesson and just chop it up, right? So it's like, okay, here's me giving an instruction, slice it. And then next video is the student replying by doing that ask, right? Maybe singing the song, singing the exercise, slice. So it's a slower means in some ways, except that the way I set it up, I try to get in those few points so that it's very clear, and it does expedite it a bit. But I would argue that it is authentic to the practice. And this is always something that I'm thinking about. Is this authentic? Is it working? Does it have the effect? Does it feel true to what it's actually like to be in a lesson? And I would argue absolutely it is, at least for me, in the way I approach teaching and using my method of teaching. And that is that there's a lot of turn taking. There's a lot of ownership on the part of the student to understand the tools, to think about the process in addition to the singing, and that there's going to be that natural back and forth between teacher and student. So I hope that you find this useful to think about how you might incorporate videos. I'd love to hear other ways that you're using videos. I'd also hope that this, if you're not using it already, as a way to supplement either an additional service in your off hours, or for solving the issue of what to do when someone misses a lesson, to have this as an option, because I think it's really important for consistency in terms of the teachers and the students, that we have different ways in our very full and wonderful lives that we get here to make the most of it and to really support our students in multiple ways, in multiple modes. Some people are actually more comfortable in that video space where it's private and they can send it in, rather than being in person, right? Because it takes a lot of vulnerability, and not that the videos aren't, because I think they are too, but I think to be, especially a child who is maybe more reserved, shy, for lack of a better word, to be with an adult for a lesson, that can be an intimidating setting. So I think because our youngsters are so used to this digital world now of videos, for them to be creating a video, sending it, I think that there is something familiar and maybe even more inviting in some ways than being in person. Not that it's going to replace anything else, right? And I think that that's also an important point to make, is that, I'm looking for ways that support and offer multiple factors and ways in, rather than just keeping it the way it is, right? We're looking to expand it and offer multiple means of support. So it can be in addition to. I also think it's a really great way for someone who's maybe on the fence or not sure, somebody who's maybe feeling really intimidated because they don't feel that they have a lot of confidence around their voice. But that's an easy way in for them to just start with this with a, less an investment of time and money, other resources, to just start there and then have that be a stepping stone on the way in for live lessons, perhaps. So I hope this offers you some new ways of thinking about it. I want to hear about your ways and what it's like when you try it. So thank you so much for being here and listening, and we'll offer some show notes down below. All right, take care and happy teaching and singing, everyone. Thank you for joining me for this podcast. To learn more about my step-by-step approach to voice education, where I've consolidated 30 years of vocal study into 4 words even a 3-year-old can do, just go to www.vielka.com. That's Vielka.com. Happy singing.